Now, that being said, we'll go straight into the conversation now. I'm in the studio with two gentlemen here. I have to my right the NNPP spokesman. He's the publicity secretary, Mr. Abo Major, and to my left we have public policy analyst, Mr. Daniel Obaje. Welcome to the program. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. All right. Let's start with you, Mr. Major. I just read out the response of your party to the elections. Tell us more about that and your general comments on the process and the results.
Thank you. First, let me place it on record here that the mood of the nation suggests that we're wary of the utterances we make, because what's going on is that tempers are high, people are angry, a lot of people are feeling aggrieved that what eventually they have as results of this election does not represent what they did when they got to their various polling units. And while we're trying to grapple with that, we've continued to appeal that we need to be very careful about what is said. You just read out something where you said that the president-elect said they should surrender. And I think the use of the word surrender is not appropriate where we are now, when we're looking for how to have a house and a country that would be able to move forward, as one country, So I'm trying to make an appeal here that we need to be careful about what we say. But having said that, yes, the election, we were all set for it. Of course, that we presented one of the best, and we're convinced that we presented one of the best in terms of experience, in terms of antecedents and all other things put together. But let me tell you, the reason for the outburst of the party, of our great party, through the national chairman, Professor Rufai Alkali, yesterday is because those who went to cast votes would attest to the fact that what we had on the ballot paper, what INEC placed there, is not our logo. Of course, it has semblance of our logo. Our colors, traditional colors with which our members and followers know us, is not what they put there. And apart from that, the logo is not clean enough, looking so blurred that people found it quite difficult to be able to locate where to thumbprint for the NNPP. And that's the worry we have, and that's affected us largely because as the publicity secretary of the party, even on election day, I received so many calls, from all parts of the country. People were finding it very difficult to identify our logo on the ballot box and all of that. And that's the essence of that press conference that was done yesterday. The reason is simple. It needs to be redressed, because normally, before every election, specimen ballot papers are printed, and party leaders are invited to come and look at them so that they would make their observations if they feel there are shortcomings or certain things that could, confuse its followers. And that was done, but eventually we had expected that after those observations were made, they were supposed to have come out with something cleaner that would be very easy for people to identify, but that wasn't what we saw. So somehow we are convinced that there's some form of collusion somewhere. I wouldn't be able to say from where to where, but generally the umpire should be held responsible for this, for bringing out the logo of NNPP, the way they wanted to bring it out, not the way the party would have wanted them to bring it out. And that's the essence of that. And that's why up to now, we are still not comfortable with what has happened. And we're still telling our followers, even though we're appealing that they should be peaceful, because you need to have a nation before you begin to talk of who leads it, So our party is associated with peace, and so we are appealing to our members to stay calm. But then we'll press forward to let the whole world know that there's so much injustice that the electoral body has done to us as a party in this election. And that explains why we were not able to come out triumphant in this election. So that's where we are at the moment.
All right, just to have, before we move on a bit, between the pre-election and election itself, was there any instance where you had the opportunity to perhaps view what the ballot paper was going to look like or thereabouts?
That's what I'm telling you. The procedure is that before every general election, leaders of political parties are invited to the INEC conference room, and then the specimen of the ballot paper would be given to them. It goes around, everybody makes observation. So if it gets to you and you see that there is anything wrong with your logo, that's the opportunity you have to ask them to make amends to it. That was done There's no doubt about that. That was done. But like I said, between that time when that exercise took place and then the voting proper, I don't know what happened. That's why I'm suspecting collusion. Because the observations that were made when the ballot papers were brought never made any effect. Rather, what we even saw in the ballot paper was even worse than what was presented to them, to the party leaders as specimen ballot papers for them to examine.
All right, thank you for that. Let's hear from you now, Mr. Daniel Abaje. I'd like to start with your general thoughts on the process and the declaration, the results we saw. How did you view the process?
Well, I'm happy we're hearing from one of the political parties. Generally, I've been talking to friends, and I also observe that the atmosphere right now in Nigeria is a little bit calm. And we pray that this will continue. And my joy is that all the political parties that are aggrieved, they are all talking about peace. And you can hear from my brother here. Like he said, we need to have a country before we can talk about political, associations and then contestations. What happened on Saturday is an election between INEC and the Nigerian people. Are you with me, my brother?
Yes.
The election of Saturday is between INEC and Nigerian people. Two political parties were not given the chance. By what we have been hearing, the electorate that was coming out of these two political parties, PDP and APC. But after the election, you see what happened. His own party. In fact, I will have to congratulate him and his principal. They did very well. The Labour Party was never given a chance. So, my brother, in the course of this program, as we go on further, I will tell you things that we need to hear. See, in this part of the world, the greatest challenge we have is that we are not building institutions. It was institution that get Donald Trump out of White House, not the Democrat. And in this case, Labour Party and MNPP, I'm happy they say they are going to court. Let them go there and test this thing in the court. Because in this part of this world, one man said it, and we continue to respect him for that word. He said his ambition does not want the blood of anybody, and we are praying that no Nigerian will die. We have peace before the election, and after the election we are going to have peace. Nigeria is greater than even Mr. President. Nigeria is greater than every individual. So, my brother, we need to begin to build institutions. INEC, my problem is not with the political parties. My problem is with INEC. You gave a promise, like our local palace, they said, you can't beat a child and not expect that child to cry. This is what INEC has done. I mean, let us say the fact, put it the way it is. That is a fact. You set the rules, and then when the children that you are a father and you set the rule in your family, and your children within the confines of this rule, they are obeying the rule. You, the father, you break the rule, and the children are saying, why did you break the rule? And you begin to spank them. So that is what INEC have done. Our pain and our grouse is not with the political parties, it's with INEC. And if I'm to lend my voice to the millions of Nigerians out there, I will say the INEC chairman should resign. He needs to resign before the gubernatorial election. Because what he told us, my brother, I'm not a lawyer, but the word shall, as you find it in the Constitution, you find it in the Holy Scripture. The Holy Bible, which I read, which I practice, which I believed in, said to us, thou shalt not do this. The word shall is a commandment. And when they hear a word like you may, is tentative. But when you hear what shall, INEC, by the new electoral guidelines, said told us severally that they are going to carry out these elections in such a way that it will be seen to be transparent, fair, and credible. Like what happened in Oshu. I watched the election in Anambra and that of Ekiti. There was no issue. Why is it now that this presidential election is bringing so much issues? Is because INEC has not addressed the fundamentals of this election. And that's why we are still having the issues we are having today.
All right. Before we move ahead, I'd just like to point out an old press release from INEC. I don't know if you've seen it, from 2022. I'll read out what the statement says here. The headline reads, "Alleged plot to abandon the transmission of polling unit results to IRF portal." It reads, "Our attention has been drawn to reports in a section of the media of alleged plans by the Commission to rig the 2023 general elections by abandoning the direct and real-time electronic upload of polling unit results to INEC result viewing portal by the registration area technical support staff. The claim is patently false. The Commission has repeatedly reassured Nigerians that it will transmit results directly from the polling units, as we witnessed it in Ekiti and Osun State governorship elections and 103 more constituencies where off-cycle governorship elections were held, and so on and so forth." This is from February 11th, November 2022. I'd like to get your thoughts. During the collation, there was a point where, after multiple reporters were made, the INEC chairman said that he would answer those issues the next day of the collation, and we didn't hear that. As one of the parties, did you have some sort of private message sent to you, or were you reached out to explain, why this? There seems to be some discrepancy between this press release from last year and what we saw happen at the collation center.
Well, first, the first leg of this your question, let me answer that directly. Well, there have been no contact with the political parties in line with that promise that was made. But let me take you back to the history of how we got to where we are today in terms of the use of the electronic voting system. I said this with the benefits of hindsight, having been in active party administration continuously without any break for the past 22 years. My party, I was part of its beginning. That's to say, I'm a founding member of the party, and since then the task of running it has been all around me. I have risen through the ranks from Deputy National Secretary to National Secretary, at a point acting chairman, before the TNM and Kwankwasia group came and we needed to do some realignments. I think what has happened in INEC is clearly Professor Yakub is guilty of eroding public confidence, which we assisted him to build over time, having been actively involved in all of this. The history of what we have today, its original conception, the use of possibly electronic voting system, was conceived not even by Mahmoud. It was during the days of Atahiru Jega. Some of us had the opportunity of going out of the country to understudy how it works, and it's still working in so many other countries, Kenya, South Africa, and the rest of them. When we came back, we recommended full-blown electronic voting, which was going to have zero place for papers, just you and the machine. The symbol of the political parties participating in every election I put there is just you and the machine. What you need to do, once you are accredited, you go to the machine, you press whatever is the party of choice, and then by the time you are doing that, there's a link between that machine and then the server. Automatically, if 10 persons were accredited, to participate in that election as voters, by the time the first person is accredited, the information goes there, the second until 10, and it ends there. What it means is that anything short of 10 or more than 10 by half, there is fraud, But I don't know how to describe it. Maybe out of greed, the National Assembly members didn't want to let that happen because they knew that they were not there, and they are still not there based on the interest of the people, their constituents. And so whatever is good is what they always want to trash. And so they worked on it. You know, at the first instance, when the first move was made, it was jettisoned completely. It was when the second move was made, they now agreed to accept it piecemeal. But our consolation was the fact that there's a link between the accreditation and then the final result. And we said once that is taken care of, we're okay. Because the malfeasance takes place at the various collation centers, you know. From the polling unit level, you still get it right, but the next level, which is maybe the ward collation unit, the local government collation point, the state, and then finally the federal. This is where they do all the manipulation. So that we were even able to get the beavers coming, you know, to verify you either based on your facials or your fingerprint was a major milestone. That the beavers was also programmed in such a way that, you know, remember the beavers is another form of voters register. Because what is on the manual voters register is what is fed into the beavers. So that the beavers was there to ensure that there is a link between the man accredited and then eventually his choice of party that he has voted for. We thought was enough, you know, to assuage whatever were our fears and difficulties. But what has happened in this presidential election is they decided to cut it. And so there's nobody to hold responsible other than the election monitoring body.
Correct.
But that is Professor Yakub himself. And I could see the difficulty with which he was trying to explain. I'm not a lawyer like he said, but I have taken my time to try to create a link, because I could see what the Senate President was saying yesterday, that what was passed was not electronic transmission of result and all of that. I don't want to join issues with people like that who do not, who are not bothered about what the people are saying, but they want to claim their leaders. But I'm worried about the reputation that Professor Yakub has built for himself over time. Remember, we haven't had an INEC chairman in office for 2 terms. This is the first time it's happening.
That's true.
And so that was based, that choice, that decision was based on what the political parties were saying about him as inside players. At least we were able to come out to say, this man has added value to this system, to this institution, and so let's give him another chance. But that's not what eventually we've seen now, you know. So we're worried about that. Now, they have difficulties explaining this. Now, you came out with guidelines. We have looked at this from the legal perspectives over and over again. And lawyers, including SANS, celebrated lawyers, have come out to say that the Electoral Act and even the Constitution gives INEC the right to come out with guidelines for every election. And that those guidelines are as good as the provisions of the Electoral Act or the Constitution itself. I'm speaking as a layman, but these are the things we've had lawyers say. Celebrated lawyers, SANS and all of that. And so, even if they're now trying to look for an escape route to say this wasn't our intentions in passing that law, we are now reminding them that Yakub said this repeatedly, and it is there, blue and white, on the what do I call it? The guidelines for the elections. The results will be transmitted automatically from the polling unit. So why did you jettison that? If lawyers have told you, and you also have insisted that your rules and guidelines are as strong as the provisions of the law themselves, at what point did you now decide to bend the law? At what point, until you were reminded that you should have done this? Of course, the argument now that they are advancing is that this should have been done at the polling unit level. Who sent those polling unit agents to that place? Is it not the same INEC? Why didn't you tell them that this is what we have agreed we will do and all of that? My brother, these people are struggling to explain what seemingly is unexplainable. They've done so much injustice to Nigerians. They've made Nigerians, they've reversed us back by about 20 years. Nigerians have no faith in the electoral system anymore. And I was just before I came in here, I was trying to do an analysis based on what has happened to us in Kano, where so many of our followers were locked up in one of our offices, and then fire was set on it. About 13 of them died. And then those who managed to try to escape, somebody was there. Somebody who says he's a lawmaker was there waiting for them, and then he was using the service pistol of his personal security man, a policeman, to shoot 1, 2, 3. So outside the 13 that died in the hall where they were locked up and set ablaze, about 3 were shot and killed, making it 13. So, what part of the law gives him the authority to do that, even as lawmaker? Now, let me tell you, I was discussing this with some of our core members in Kano, And all that I'm hearing is that they should be prepared to kill all of us on the 11th. So you're going to see them come up with so much venom. They are going to do what they want to do. I'm telling you that Kano people are prepared. And they are prepared because they have no faith in the electoral umpire anymore. They don't even want to be interested in what INEC is telling them, whether at the national level or at the level of the REC's office in Kano and all of that. What they are determined to do is, we'll go there. Of course, the law says we must use the ballot papers. We'll use the ballot papers, we will do the voting. But they will see our anger in the pattern of voting. Now, this is not what is expected from an agency as sensitive as INEC at a very crucial and charged atmosphere like we found ourselves in. This man honorably would have stuck to his words, ensured that whatever he promised Nigerians, he kept solely to it. But that wasn't what we saw. So, to come back to the question again, in one short sentence, he doesn't bother whether there are political parties or not. Whatever he has done, he feels he has done it. And so I don't think he has reached any political party. If he has not reached mine. And I'm sure we're a very strong force as far as this election is concerned. We haven't been reached. And I'm also sure that he has not reached the Labour Party, neither has he reached PDP. He has done what he wants to do, but history is there.
All right. The legitimacy of this election, considering, or the questions of legitimacy, not the legitimacy itself, of this election, considering the what I call lack of transparency, do you think it in any way dampens, the results that we've seen so far? And also, when you said you're happy that the Labour Party and others are going to court, is there similar trust in the judicial process, that makes people feel that justice would definitely come from that angle?
The present administration has given us every reason to doubt the ability to, get fairness or justice from any court of the land. If Mr. President himself and MFLA, if the Supreme Court of Nigeria can tell Mr. MFLA and Mr. President that the issue of the Naira redesign should be suspended for now, pending the hearing before them, how much more the issue of a political, contestation that they themselves are involved. My brother, I sit back as a Nigerian, and I'm not a member of any political party. And I said the political party should be thinking of this now, not even about the uploading of result alone. But I want to give you examples of two states, Kano and Lagos. I said to myself, who is these tacticians working with INEC, working with Yakubu, that did these perfect calculations? Because for me, it was a perfect calculations to bring to the fore to the international community and Nigerian people that this is how the elections were held in all the state of the federation. How do you tell me that the people of Benue State voted massively for APC? Benue people that have been having issues with what they call them, this flying headsmen, there have been series of issues in that state.
The headsmen, let's
yes.
Keep the ethnicity out of it.
Today, APC won Benue State. As a Nigerian, it beats my money. I can't lay hold on it. Then we talk about Akwa Ibom. Akwa Ibom is a traditional PDP state. The only person that comes from there that has a little bit of political weight is the past governor, in the person of Akpabio, who just joined APC. Not up to, I don't think it's up to 3 years. Today, APC won that state. Rivers State, APC. No. Lagos State, we are told that Lagos, the numbers of registered voters in Lagos are 7,000. I mean 7 million, sorry. The population of Lagos, they said to us, is about 20 to 23. Until the new census is done, then we can get the right figure. But 20 for me is like 3 countries put together, bordering from Togo, Ghana, Niger. Lagos Lagos is above these three nations that I've mentioned. And INEC is telling us that only 7 million registered to vote in Lagos. Agree. And then the result put out there, they said only 2-point-something million voted. The vote count for Labour Party was 500 and something. That of APC was less than that of Labour. Then the other two political parties share a little bit of the remainder. I said to myself, why are the political parties talking about only the transmission of result by polling unit to the server? Can they technically look at also these voting patterns that have happened to them and to the Nigerian people? You and I know before these elections what happened. How Nigerians have clamored for a change. And Yakubu, the INEC chairman, over time, because of what we saw happen in Ekiti, in Edo, in Anambra, and in Osun, which is the latest one. Like he said, everybody, all Nigerians, we all had faith that this election would be free, fair, and credible. And that's why I stated in my opening statement that this election that I've just heard, it is not an election between the Nigerian people and the various political parties, but it's an election between Nigerians and Yakubu and the entire INEC structure. Now you ask, what is the feeling of the people? What is the mood of the people? In Nigeria right now, go out there and see for yourself. Everybody is feeling aggrieved. We are in a solitary mood, as if we lost somebody. That is the general feeling everybody is having. And then again, the disappointment of international observers. All the international observers, they are all disappointed. You need to hear their statement. And like he said, I watch keenly all the transmission and all the agitations before Yakubu. And what did he say? We are waiting to hear from him. These are issues, we are going to address them, but allow them to score this result after the calling of this result that is coming from Ekiti, that is coming from this state. Then we can address those issues. The political parties keep on requesting that these issues should be addressed now. The man never addressed anything. He said, in fact, what I heard was, if they have any grounds, after the result is being concluded, they can go to court. And that is what the APC that is once been declared as the winner is saying, if they have any grounds, all the political parties will have any grounds, they should go to court. So my brother, like I said earlier, we need to begin to build institutions in this country. Because when we have a solid institution, it's not like when you have a man and the head of affairs of an organization, once that man goes from the office, it goes on with all the files. And if anything needs to be approved, you have to wait for him to resume his office the following day. So there is no institution. It's human. It's all about human, we know. So they're going to court. Yes, I want them to go to court so that there won't be agitation on the street. Because we are in the process. Every nation, even the American system, they pass through processes. And you saw what happened in Capitol Hill, a nation that have practiced democracy over 200 years. So we are going through a process. But what I know, and I can speak for myself and some of my family members, that this election, we believe Yakubu stole the mandate of some of us. Because we know whom we voted for and the party we voted for. But he stole our mandate. It's obvious now. You can see it literally at the polling unit, even where I voted. You can feel it. So how do you tell me that Lagos State dropped for Labour, Kano for NNPP? Yes, it's a stronghold of NNPP, Kano. You can't take that away from him. A man who is solidly on ground, who has taught the life of his people. That is my pain in this country. People who meant well to develop nations and their state and their jurisdictions, building capacities and going out of their way to plow back to the society, they are not being given opportunity. Then you have mediocres. People that do not mean well for Nigeria because they have affiliations to themselves, like I know you now. It's not about merit, it's about who you know. I make reference and you take the person in. That's what is happening. So the political party should not be looking at only the transmission of result from the server, from the polling unit to the server. They should also be looking at what happened to these states, the permutations. And that's why I said to myself, I sat down and I was like, have you ever come across this book, this called 48 Laws of Power? That is a book that a child of God, if you read that book, you become a strategic thinker and a human being who will have not only capacity but the wherewithal to manipulate others. So I said to myself, whoever did this mathematical calculations for INEC, I give him kudos. No, that's the truth. Because the result in Lagos and the result of Kano. Let me where I'm coming, sir. It's like, give them this.
Let me add something. Let me add something.
We use us as a premise to say, after all, you take our side, you took this, and we didn't say anything. And of course, what was I was thinking happened. Yeah, take Lagos. They took Lagos, we never reacted. We gave them So, the election and the contestations of this present political atmosphere we are is between the Nigerian people, Labour, NNPP, and Yakubu. I'll continue to call him Jega.
Let me add something. It is good that you are really thinking like a party administrator. Let me tell you something. Yesterday, I was sitting down with a few of my friends, and we were thinking of a lot of things. And I brought out a poser. As a gentleman, can you imagine the mad rush for people to get registered? There was this heavy agitation that we must change and make Nigeria better.
Exactly.
And that made the youths out of anger to troop out to register. Have you checked through the statistics of those who came out to vote in this election and tried to compare it to those who voted in 2015? There's no difference. Despite the fact that we have a total of 90-something million voters. And out of these 90-something million voters, about half of them just registered and collected their PVCs. So what happened to, their votes? Are you telling me that despite the pains, the difficulties they are subjected to, they chose to stay in their homes that day? They came out to vote, and they were prepared to vote. For one, administrative reason or the other. Probably they were bad for voting, or they voted, and their votes did not count, or something like that. Because once you jettison the use of the beavers, it opens room for anybody to think that it's even possible for people to have voted and those ballot papers are thrown away.
Correct.
They're thrown away. So for the first time, we have 90-something million registered voters, and we got only less than, slightly below 25 million come out to determine who will be president of a country that has a population of over 300 million. Meanwhile, in 2015, we had about half of that, I think about 40-something million registered voters. And 23 or 22 point something came out to elect the present president of the nation. So have we made any progress? No. It's not as if as citizens we have not made any progress. But the institutions, like you keep saying, and those who run the institutions have continued to subdue the wishes of Nigerians. That's exactly what happened in this election. That's the truth. Just to add to what he said. So,
all right. But now I'd like to get your thoughts on, the way forward. Knowing all of this, you've said that there could be collusions here and there.
Not could, there is.
Oh, there are. Right. So the issue now is, as a political party, how do you handle about 8 days from now? What strategy do you go out with to avoid some of these things where the people who you feel have been put in charge in the middle between you and other parties might take sides with one of these parties?
Let me tell you, Amadin, the election of 11th of March is no longer an election that needs to be policed by anybody. It's an election that the Nigerian electorates will police for themselves.
Correct.
That's why I started, I think I've made this comment clearly. I tried to cite the instance of my discussions with a few people from Kano before I got here. These are people who are determined. When a Nigerian is telling you until you kill all of us, you cannot have your way, that's to tell you the level of preparedness for the worst. And so, this is an election that does not need to be policed by the conventional police or policed by the army or policed by the DSS or policed by the civil defense. This is an election in which the electorates themselves would police themselves, ensure that they are safe enough to cast their votes, police the electoral materials, police the voting process, and even police the result. The only advice I can give as a party leader is that those who would be in charge ceremonially, I use the word ceremonially because they will just be in charge on paper. But the voters would be in charge of everything for that day. So those who would ceremonially be in charge of proceedings that day, it will be funny for me to say you need to be patriotic. I don't need to tell you that. Because the die is cast. Nigerians are angry. So it is either you behave yourself or you have a lot of stories to tell in the course of trying to do this job. As a political party, of course, you and I know that if there is any party that is very peaceful in this country, that have gone about its business in the most conducive and peaceful atmosphere, it has been the New Nigeria People's Party. Despite the fact that its membership is drawn majorly from the youths, we've tried to continue to insist that we don't need violence in our party. We have zero tolerance for violence. We don't want people who are necessarily problematic. We only want people who are able to think progressively. What we want is how do we effect changes under very conducive atmosphere. That has always been our message. And so in line with that, we have continued to insist, despite the difficulties we're faced with in this election, despite the shortcomings of this election, we've continued to insist that our members must remain peaceful and wait, because conventionally, anywhere in the world, once the result of an election is declared, that thing you're doing, you're taking laws into your hands. The only way to go is to move to the tribunal. So like he said, how many Nigerians believe in getting this justice that is needed from these tribunals? That's why, until we do away with this mentality that is held by our leaders, that what you need is to go win the election under whatever circumstance and let them meet you in court. Once somebody is telling you that, you should know that he knows what he's talking about. Invariably, I will say it on air, but he is putting a question mark on the integrity of those that you are going to meet by the time you go to court to try to press for redress. Any politician that is telling you that, I remember, I won't mention any name, but even at the small IPAC election level, there was one that we had, I think it was in 2011 or thereabout. And somebody who was the national chairman of a political party told me, because I was an arrow man, an arrowhead, as far as the decision as to who would be IPAC chairman that year was concerned. And I went to meet the man. Do you know what he told me? He said, my son, I tried to let him understand that whatever would be the decision that we will take tomorrow may be difficult to justify, because it is clear that some of the agencies that are supposed to be there have already taken sides. They won't be there because they know that they are not likely to have their way through by getting what they have in their minds to get. You know what he told me? He said, ignore that. Go and win that election. Let them meet us in court. And from that day, I lost my respect for that man. He's still alive. I don't want to mention his name. So until we do away with that thinking, that look, the first thing is to go and win. And that is what APC has cashed in on. Declare this result, let them meet us in court. That's exactly what has happened. So it is a lot of injustice to our electoral system. It is also a lot of, injustice to the psyche of Nigerians. Those who have to come under sun, to queue, to be able to cast their votes. On the part of INEC, like I said, what they have done is to tell Nigerians that they don't know what they are doing. Otherwise, you promise them heaven and earth, you would bequeath a legacy that will be a talking point over time. But look at how it ended. What the parties were asking for was very simple. You said you would do this. What happened? Can we now give you a break so that you ensure that this is done before you continue? And that was never going to be. He insisted on continuing. He continued. He declared the result. Even when lawyers were throwing in certain aspects of the law that should have given him pointers that it was not safe for him to declare a winner. It never sounded serious to him. He went ahead, did what he wanted to do. I have finished, go to court. That's the problem we're having. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that the election of 11th, which is next week Saturday, Nigerians will be shocked. And I know that more of these political parties out of sympathy would win seats. I see more than half of the 18 registered political parties in this country today winning seats because the people are determined now to cast their votes the way they want. These people don't know that they have incurred the brunt and anger of the people.
That's true.
It's going to affect them on Saturday. I'm looking at least 4 or 5 governors that my party should get. And it might turn out to be 10 because the people are now angry. I'm not talking of state assembly seats. That one is just for small sizes of constituents to come and decide this is what we want. So it's good for our democracy, but it's not good, like he said. They are weakening our institutions and then strengthening themselves as those who are presiding over those institutions. And that's why we're having a lot of difficulties as a country getting things properly done and all of that. So policing the election, nobody needs to dissipate any further energy. The parties have finished their job. And what Mahmoud has done now is to make the job even easier for the political parties. So you can see nobody is even campaigning again. Because this job has been made easy. Nigerians are now determined to do what they want to do and ensure that they get the results they are looking for, since they have lost faith in the electoral body to be able to give them what they want as electorates.